Hello and welcome to the mentor and supervisor update for all of those looking after candidates who wish to undertake the British Society of Echo accreditation process. My name's Natasha, I'm a member of the accreditation committee and I'll be taking you through some tips, tricks and updates of the current process to obtaining BSE accreditation. The following presentation is intended to provide an update for any mentors or supervisors looking after individuals who wish to undertake the British Society of Echo accreditation examinations. There are lots of specific references to the Transthoracic Adult Level 2 accreditation. However, there are many relevant tips, tricks and information for candidates who are taking other accreditation streams such as transesophageal echo, stress echo or level 1, for example. In addition to this presentation, there will be live Q&A sessions which will be held throughout the year for mentors and supervisors to direct questions directly to assessors, station leads and members of the accreditation committee. They'll be advertised on the website in due course. Take a look at the website and social media for those dates that are upcoming. All candidates undertaking the accreditation process require a mentor or supervisor in order to oversign their work. Who can be a mentor? Well, that can be anyone who's an experienced echocardiographer, and they should be able to successfully guide candidates through the whole accreditation process from theory to practical. Being accredited themselves is not essential. It's certainly an advantage having gone through the process themselves, but it's not mandatory. And the mentor must complete the curriculum-based assessment tool and the mentor statement section of the online Logbook portal, which I'll describe later on in the presentation. So where is the best place to start? Well, the first thing I would do is download the relevant accreditation pack. The accreditation pack contains all of the relevant submission requirements. They have marking sheets and trailing syllabus as well, and all of the information needed to successfully achieve accreditation. Changes are made from time to time in line with the most current guidelines and in response with feedback from assessors, mentors and the candidates themselves. All accreditation exams, both the theory and practical, are marked in line with the latest accreditation pack recommendations, so it's important you're up to date with those. Accreditation packs can be downloaded on the website and by clicking on the accreditation tab. It's available on desktop, tablet and mobile devices also. So here is a screenshot from the website. If you click on the accreditation tab, you can see there's a drop-down menu and you can access accreditation packs for all of the relevant accreditations offered by the British Society of Echo. Plus there's information on governance, extensions, both the written and practical assessments on how to book. There's also a list down at the bottom of any accredited members should you need to use that. From the drop-down menu on the previous slide, you will get this page and you can bring up the accreditation pack, and it's a 60-page document which will go through the entire process from start to finish with lots of relevant tips, tricks and marking sheets that you can use with your candidates to hopefully successfully get them through the accreditation process. Once you've downloaded the accreditation pack, it's worth ensuring that you have the correct accreditation pack for the examination that your candidate's intending to take. You may well have previous versions downloaded and saved on your laptop or computer. Take a look at that when you go into it and make sure it's the correct accreditation and it's the most up-to-date version. There's also, as it says at the bottom of the accreditation pack front page there's mark sheets and submission criteria included. Make use of them. They are super useful and will help you guide your candidates successfully through the process. The theory exam is the first part of the accreditation process and it's held twice a year, usually in the spring and in the autumn. It's held in Pearson View assessment centres and there are various locations around the UK. the Republic of Ireland, and there are some overseas locations also. There are two sections to the theory exam. The first part is a multiple choice section, and it consists of 125 questions with a pass mark approximately of around 66%. The second part of the theory exam is some imaging questions, and candidates will be presented with 10 video cases with 5 questions on each case, and that holds a pass mark of around about 60%. Pass marks are a guideline only, as they could be changed at the discretion of the chief examiner following moderation of the exams. Information regarding registering for the theory exam is all on the website. You have to undertake a pre-registration, and if you click on the accreditation tab and go on the drop-down list to written examination, it will give you all of the information of all the upcoming exams. Pre-registration is undertaken by completing the online form, and the registration window is generally open for a period of 4 weeks. Following pre-registration, Pearson VUE will contact the candidates with further information to confirm the location and the arrangements for the exam. And it can be taken in 2 ways. It can be taken in person at a test centre or via an online proctored exam, and that's subject to the system requirements of your device or computer that you're able to take it on. Any candidates requiring any special accommodations for sitting the theory exam can be made by Pearson VUE. Any requirements need to be made in writing with supporting information and submitted to the email address shown on the screen, accreditation@bsecho.org. There's more information in the accreditation pack and on the website regarding special accommodations. On the day of the theory exam, the exam is either taken at a test centre in person or on the computer via an online proctored version. The candidates will be provided with a video tutorial, and that will guide the candidates through the theory exam process and how to answer the questions. Candidates will not need to bring any stationery with them to the exam. A calculator is built into the exam system, or via the proctored exam, it's built in to the online version. Candidates taking the exam in person at the Pearson VUE Centre will be provided with an erasable sheet for them to make notes, which will be left for the examiners at the end of the session. There's also a built-in version to the online exam. Photo ID is required on the day of the exam when registering also. Getting the results. Results are released about 5 to 6 weeks after the exam and will be uploaded to candidates' personal profiles. Both the multiple choice question section and the digital reporting section must be passed to achieve an overall pass for the written exam. There's no negative marking, so each correct answer receives 1 mark and incorrect or unanswered questions don't receive any marks at all. Unsuccessful attempts cannot be appealed or remarked, as the exams are marked digitally. There's no limit to the number of attempts that candidates can take for the written exam, and accreditation is awarded only once both the theory and the practical components have been completed successfully. There's no partial accreditation if the written is passed but the practical has not yet been taken. Following successful completion of the written exam, candidates can register for the second part of the accreditation process, which is a practical exam. The practical exam involves 3 stations of assessment: a logbook of written reports, which will be uploaded to an online portal, a practical scan guided by an assessor, and a video case viva of 5 full echo studies and their reports. Over the next few slides, I'm going to go through the elements of the practical exam in a little bit more detail, and I'll go through each station in turn with some tips, tricks, and what to expect. So on the day of the practical exam, the candidates will register at their given time. This will activate their logbook portal for the Station 1 examiners. However, during the COVID-19 pandemic and the restrictions imposed due to that, Station 1 has been marked remotely prior to the exam day. Any instructions for logbook submissions will be communicated to the candidates when they register. Following registration on the day, candidates will advance straight to Station 2, which is a guided echo exam on either a model or a simulator. They'll have a set number of images to take, and the examiner will guide them through those images. They'll then advance to Station 3, where they will present their video cases and reports. And finally, they'll advance back to the registration desk for their final result and to get their feedback from Station 1. Station 1 is a production of 250 cases that have been performed and reported by the candidate. There's a reduction in those numbers if BSc or a EACVI TOE accreditation is also held. The logbook should contain copies of the actual clinical reports, and they should be submitted via the online logbook portal. In the accreditation pack, there is a user guide on how to use the logbook portal. It's super easy and is really convenient. The studies that are presented in the logbook should reflect the normal caseload of a general adult department, and there are specific case mix provided in the accreditation pack of what you need to provide. There's also a competency assessment tool, and that should be completed by the candidate's mentor on the online portal. Of the 250 cases that the candidates need to provide in their logbook, there's a specific breakdown of different pathologies that the candidates need to present. The largest section of the logbook is of valve disease assessment. There should be at least 50 cases, and this will make up the majority of the logbook. But if you go through the case mix, you can see there are different minimum numbers for each different pathology. For example, there should be 25 cases demonstrating left ventricular function assessment. There should be 10 for the assessment of the right ventricle. No more than 25 should be completely normal. You can also include specialised studies like stress and bubble contrast studies, but these aren't mandatory. If you do include any, there should be no more than 20 in total. And one thing to note is that the same patient can be scanned by more than one candidate in any one centre if the case is rare. However, the candidate must do their own scan and their own report. Within the logbook, it's important that candidates demonstrate skills in assessing pathologies, both by quantitative methods and descriptive and analytical methods. For example, cases in the valve disease section should show appropriate quantitative measurements for regurgitation or stenosis, not simply descriptions. Where appropriate, differential diagnoses should be considered where echo is not definitive. For example, in a case with significant left ventricular hypertrophy where there's no aortic stenosis, the differential may be hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, hypertensive heart disease, or an infiltrative process, as an example. Logbooks are marked according to a standard operating procedure, and that's available on the website. A suggested report format is included in the accreditation pack. Objective measurements and descriptions should be included, plus a conclusion that summarises the report. All parts of the heart, so that's chambers, valves, pericardium, septum, should be described. And they should be scanned and reported according to the BSc minimum data set and any appropriate reference ranges or guidelines, for example, the guideline for aortic stenosis or for pulmonary hypertension, for example. As a guide, there's example marking sheets in the accreditation pack. Now these are really useful to go through with the candidate what they need to be including as a minimum, and then tailor anything specific for your department from there. The logbook should contain mainly reports that meet the BSc minimum data set. However, we know in real life that not every patient does meet minimum data set, but for the accreditation process, try and include mainly ones that do. It's not appropriate to include patients who were poorly echogenic and there is no quantitative or descriptive assessment to be made. All parts of the heart should be described, and any quantitative assessments are expected, as well as descriptions where appropriate should be included. When assessors are marking the logbook, there is an example mark sheet in the accreditation pack. A minimum of 6 reports will be marked at random, and if there are errors or omissions or inaccuracies, then further reports will be reviewed to assess the candidate's ability and if they're making consistent errors across the board. The assessor will then provide feedback on those reports that have been reviewed, and they'll offer a result for that station. Following assessment of the logbook, there are 2 outcomes, and they are as follows. The logbook will be considered satisfactory for BSc accreditation or unsatisfactory at present. If the logbook is deemed to be unsatisfactory, the candidate will be asked to provide further reports to address unsatisfactory components. And the number of reports needed for the resubmission will be decided by the station lead in discussion with the assessor. So if the assessor feels that the candidate will need to resubmit, there will be a discussion with the station lead, and they'll decide between the 2 of them what would be appropriate for the candidate to demonstrate that they meet the criteria. If it's felt that the logbook falls so far of the minimum in all domains, and it's felt a full 250 case resubmission is required, this would be verified by the chief examiner. Some of the common pitfalls in Station 1. The biggest one is patient identifiable information. This would be an automatic fail. On the online portal, there is a function to be able to anonymize any PDF reports, but sometimes if there are multiple pages, candidates forget to blank out any patient identifiable information at the bottom of pages or on second pages, for example. So do double check. Incomplete reports, where not all of the heart is described adequately or there are missing quantitative assessments. There are frequently mismatched descriptions and measurements. So in this example here, the left ventricle has been described as normal size, but the internal dimension is out of the normal range. It has been known for candidates to submit duplicate reports. This is not acceptable. There should be 250 separate reports in the logbook. And if there are missing or insufficient examples of any quantitative techniques, that would not be sufficient to pass the logbook. Station 2 is a guided practical assessment of image acquisition. And there are left and right-handed scanning rooms available, and candidates will only be assigned to their preferred orientation. The machines that are used for the exam are completely dependent on the host department that we are working in for that assessment day. However, assessors are not there to assess the candidate's use of the machine, so they can guide the candidate on the use of any unfamiliar machines and help them with image acquisition by pressing buttons or showing them how to change the gain if they ask. Candidates will be asked to demonstrate a set number of views, and they're predetermined. There's an example of the imaging list in the accreditation pack. The assessors will take benchmark images at the start of the practical session for comparison with any candidate images. Typically, we use a live model and we'll use an imaging list that is appropriate to that model. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, however, we have been using a simulator, and feedback from candidates have said that that has been as easy as scanning on a model. Each image for the practical exam is marked according to a mark scheme in real time. The assessors have a tablet and will mark each image as the candidate takes it. Once the pass mark has been achieved, the candidate will not need to take any further images, so they may be stopped prior to taking all 10 images if they have passed the station. The biggest barrier to passing at Station 2 is nerves. Now, there is an example imaging list provided in the accreditation pack, so it is worth practicing a guided image acquisition so that candidates know what to expect and can get into that exam environment prior to the examination. There are no trick images, and all of the images that candidates are asked to take are achievable, and they're checked prior to the start of the exam, either on the model or the simulator by the assessor, because they take benchmark images. They may not be perfect, but they are achievable to an acceptable standard, and the assessors are not looking to catch the candidates out in any way. If the candidate does not demonstrate adequate images, the assessor may ask questions to see if the candidate would know how to rectify the image that they've taken. Because the images are scored, it may mean that the candidate can achieve 1 or 2 more points if they know what they've done wrong or know how to improve what they've taken. If the candidate has not achieved the pass mark, the station lead or senior examiner would be asked to review the assessment to see if they agree with the scores being given by the assessor. If scores are very borderline and nerves are considered to be a significant factor, at the discretion of the chief examiner, a second attempt may be given. Station 3. This is the station that is least well performed, and it's a chance for candidates to demonstrate their best work. They will bring 5 full studies with all of the moving images, stills, Doppler traces and M-mode, and they're all required to be presented on a PowerPoint presentation with the moving images looped so that they play continuously. They should also include a copy of the actual clinical report. The cases that are asked to be provided are all in the accreditation pack, and there are 5 specific pathologies that should be presented with guidance on what needs to be included for each of those. On the day, up to 3 of the cases will be assessed in full by the assessor. And the cases that will be assessed are decided on the day by the station lead, and it's the same for all candidates on that day. The video cases should demonstrate the candidate's ability to perform and report a full transthoracic echo, and this includes optimization both of the views and of the spectral Doppler to ensure accurate measurements are taken. The patients don't need to be perfect. However, the candidates should be able to demonstrate adequate use of the machine controls in order to optimize the 2D images and the Doppler traces, again, for adequate and accurate measurements. The images and the spectral Doppler, although they don't have to be from perfect patient images, should be of a sufficient quality to be able to make accurate visual and quantitative assessment. So how do we get the cases right? Well, all the things on the screen here are all things that we talk to our candidates about on a daily basis, but sometimes they forget when they get to their video case acquisition, they tend to focus on the pathology first and foremost and forget about some of the basics. But don't forget to pay attention to all of these things, so things like sector width and depth, focus if it's on the machine that you're using. Using appropriate gain so it's not under or over gained. Make sure that we've got the probe on the right setting and it's not in an LVO or low power mode. We should also have a good readable ECG so that images are triggered appropriately. Colour scale and Nyquist limit. So now if candidates are looking to assess the septum and have turned down their colour scale and then fail to turn it back afterwards on subsequent colour Doppler images, that may be a cause for concern and result in a fail for that case. Similarly, for the Nyquist limits, if assessing a regurgitation, for example, and the baseline has been turned down but failed to be returned to baseline in the normal Nyquist limit and subsequent images, again, this may be a cause for concern or an unsatisfactory result for that case. Also pay close attention to the alignment of any cursors when taking Doppler or M mode. Ensuring that you get the cases right, you can use all of the guidelines and resources on the website. I have showed 2 here just as an example, but all of the cases should be obtained and reported in accordance to the latest BSE guidelines, and that's what they will be assessed against. Some departments may use alternative guidelines. However, for the video case submission, the video cases should be reported as per the BSE guidelines, as the assessors are looking to see that the candidates are able to demonstrate their skills in accordance to these guidelines. So what happens on the day at Station 3? The candidates will be asked to provide their cases on a laptop and will be welcomed into the examiner and asked to load up their cases for them to review. The examiners will have already predetermined which cases that they are going to assess, and they'll assess 2 cases. The assessors will review the case study images and the report along with the candidate, and they may ask questions to assess the candidate's understanding of the pathology or the image acquisition or the measurements that they've taken and shown on their presentation. If either of the 2 case studies are considered to be borderline or of insufficient quality, a 3rd case will be reviewed. Again, that will be predetermined on the day. If both of the cases satisfactorily meet the criteria, then the candidate successfully passes Station 3. If any of the cases are significantly inadequate or misreported, candidates will fail the station and be asked to re-report all 5 video cases at the next attempt. Where one of the 2 original cases are borderline or resubmission is being considered, the station lead will review the cases with the assessor, and then the candidates will be given constructive feedback whether they've passed or need to consider a resubmission. Again, the standard operating procedure is available on the website, and there is a marking criteria in the accreditation pack. The mark sheets are there for use to be used with the candidates to critically appraise their work prior to the submission. Any criteria that is marked as unsatisfactory will result in a fail for that case. All areas need to meet satisfactory practice in order for that to be considered a pass. All candidates should review their submission with their mentor to ensure it's of an adequate quality and meets the minimum criteria prior to the submission. So, getting results for the practical assessment. If the candidate has successful attempts at all 3 stations, then they have passed the whole accreditation process. Congratulations! An unsuccessful result, however, at any one or more of the stations will require the candidate to resubmit the elements they were unsuccessful in only. The specific resubmission criteria and time frame will be provided on the day and with the feedback from the assessors from each of the elements that they have not been successful on that day. All 3 stations are needed to be considered accredited. You do not get partial accreditation if you've passed 1 or more of the stations. And any reassessment is subject to a fee. Please see the accreditation pack or the website for the latest information on the fees for reassessment. Candidates are permitted 1 resubmission attempt, after which they would need to start the whole process again, starting from the written exam. Candidates are required to attend a practical assessment for any resubmissions, even if it's just for 1 or 2 cases. And that's because feedback has shown that face-to-face feedback from the assessors helps the candidates to be able to be successful on their resubmission. Should candidates feel that they are not satisfied with the results or the feedback that they've been given, there is a formal appeal process. Appeals need to be made in writing within 2 months of the original decision, and there is a fee associated with the appeal process. There is all the information on the guideline on the website, plus a section on frequently asked questions, which is really useful to decide whether you feel you qualify for an appeal. So we hope that all mentors and supervisors feel that they're well equipped to successfully guide their candidates through the accreditation process. But we've got some tips and tricks that might help you along the way. Make sure you've read the latest accreditation pack. It's updated regularly, and there are lots of really useful information in that with the current process and requirements needed for the candidates to submit. And there's mark sheets which could be used during their training program to critically appraise any of their submissions or work that they're providing in their logbooks. If you don't have an active examiner in your department, reach out to one locally, and you can do that via the BSc or via your regional representative if you know who that is. Also, if you don't regularly have candidates submitting accreditation logbooks, reach out to centres local to you who do have candidates on a regular basis, because they will be well used to the processes and could be able to share some experiences and tried and tested methods. Of course, after this update, if you're still unclear about any part of the process, just drop us an email as shown on the address on the bottom of the screen. We try and make the practical examination as transparent and fair a process for all candidates, and of course for the mentors and supervisors who are supporting their candidates through this process. So there is a governance page on the website, and you can access all the standard operating procedures that are provided to the assessors on the day of the examination. They're really useful for seeing what goes on and how the examination works. But if you feel that there's any information that's not included and should be made available widely, then just drop us an email. We'll be happy to consider any requests. Thank you very much for listening to the mentor update. I hope it's been useful. There will be some live Q&A sessions throughout the year where you will be able to ask questions directly to assessors, the station leads and members of the accreditation committee. So please join in for those. They'll be advertised on social media and on the website. They'll be coming very soon. And of course, we always want feedback. It's really important that we can improve our processes and information that we're providing. So please let us know what you think of the updates, and we look forward to seeing you at the live Q&A.